Have you ever wished you could just hit a factory reset button on your brain? Just wipe the slate clean and start fresh? Well, today, we're going to talk about how you can actually do that. So let me ask you, does your brain just feel off? Kind of glitchy? Maybe like you need to turn it off and on again just to get it to focus? If you're not in your head right now, you are definitely in the right place. And this right here, this is probably the biggest error message our brains are sending us. This antsy feeling, this constant nagging itch to just check your phone. It's not just you, it's a huge issue that so many of us are dealing with. Okay, so before we can fix a problem, we've got to know what we're looking for, right? So let's start by identifying the bug, basically recognizing the symptoms of a totally fried attention span. Do any of these hit a little too close to home? You pick up a book, something you used to love, and your brain just feels like nothing is getting through. Or you try to just sit in silence for a minute and it feels physically impossible. And of course, that phone. It's like it has its own gravitational pull. These are the classic signs that this bug is active in your system. So, what is the root cause? Why is this happening to us? Well, to put it simply, your brain's default setting, what we call your baseline, is, for lack of a better word, cooked. And here's the hard truth. Your attention span has been fundamentally rewired, and the main culprit is the fire hose of stimulation that we call infinite scrolling. It's a pretty simple diagnosis, even if it is a little bit scary to think about. So, to really get this, you have to understand this idea of a dopamine baseline. The best way to think about it is like a volume knob in your brain for what feels interesting or boring. It's the default level of stimulation your brain now expects, and it's what decides whether, say, reading a book feels rewarding or just painfully dull. The big problem is that our modern world, with its endless TikToks, constant notifications, and nonstop news feeds, is just cranking that volume knob all the way to max all the time. This constant flood of high-level stimulation basically rewires what your brain considers normal, and that's what totally messes up your baseline. And this is where it gets really interesting. Look at the difference here. With a healthy, normal baseline, something with low stimulation, like just sitting with your thoughts, actually feels calm and nice. And doing hard, focused work, that feels rewarding. But with a cooked baseline, that same silence feels agonizingly boring. And hard work, it feels completely impossible, like trying to climb Mount Everest. But here's the good news. Just like any software bug, this one has a fix. It has a patch. So now let's talk about how to execute that patch and actually reboot your system. And that fix has a name you've probably heard before, a dopamine detox. This is the system update. This is the patch we need to install to get your brain back to its original factory settings. And the installation process is actually pretty straightforward. Step 1 is just admitting there's a problem, recognizing, hey, I am totally overstimulated. Step 2 is the hard part, removing the sources. You got to cut out the artificial stuff, the infinite scrolling, the junk food, the video games, whatever your personal dopamine vice is. And then step 3 is where the magic happens. You execute the reset. This is where you intentionally replace all that high stimulation noise with low stimulation activities. Go for a walk without your headphones. Read a physical book. Just stare out the window for a few minutes. It's going to feel really boring at first, but that's the whole point. That's how you know it's working. And what's the whole point of all this? What's the end game? It's to get to a place where silence isn't something you need to escape from, but something you actually enjoy. It's about getting back to a point where the satisfaction of doing hard work, of really focusing on something, becomes its own reward again. That's the system we're trying to restore. So I want to leave you with this one question. Think of your brain like a smartphone with way too many apps running in the background, just draining all the battery. To start this whole reset process, what's the very first app you'd close?